And about 5 to 10 minutes after we made the decision to pull them out of Abbey Gate is when the blast occurred. And we did lose a family from that blast. After that blast went off, time was running out especially. The 82nd Airborne was gracious enough just to basically go over, instead of just doing onesies and twosies through the wall, they moved out onto the bridge and we just told them, anyone who comes running down holding up a cell phone with a pineapple on it, grab them.
I do not regret my decision.
On August 31st, 2021, America ended its longest war. But for some, the real battle was just beginning. As the last C-17 lifted off from Kabul airport, it left behind more than just abandoned equipment and empty bases. It left thousands of Afghan allies who had served alongside U.S. forces for 2 decades, interpreters who had given voice to American soldiers, intelligence assets who had risked everything to provide crucial information, and commandos who had fought shoulder to shoulder with U.S. Special Forces against the Taliban. For 20 years, they had believed in America's promises. They had trusted that their service would ensure their safety and their families' future. But one crucial decision left them behind, till a group of American veterans refused to abandon their brothers in arms. This is the story of how it happened. This is Operation Pineapple Express. Quickly hit the like and subscribe button. This is Rogue Invest. Back in 2001, 19 terrorists changed the course of history. Twin Towers had fallen. The Pentagon was burning. Nearly 3,000 Americans were dead. The threat had been brewing in the mountains of Afghanistan. Al-Qaeda, under the protection of the Taliban regime, had planned and executed the deadliest attack on American soil since Pearl Harbor. The initial campaign was swift and decisive. Within weeks, American special forces were on the ground in Afghanistan. Their mission was clear: destroy Al-Qaeda and ensure Afghanistan would never again serve as a haven for terrorists. Working with local Northern Alliance fighters, U.S. forces quickly toppled the Taliban regime. By December 2001, the remnants of Al-Qaeda and the Taliban were fleeing into Pakistan's tribal regions. What began as a focused counter-terrorism operation evolved into America's longest war. The initial victory revealed a complex challenge: how to rebuild a nation shattered by decades of conflict. The U.S. military found itself taking on new roles, not just fighting terrorists, but training Afghan forces, protecting reconstruction teams, and supporting a fledgling democratic government. For 20 years, American troops patrolled Afghanistan's mountains and valleys. They built bases, trained commandos, and fought an increasingly sophisticated insurgency. The human cost mounted steadily. More than 2,400 American service members gave their lives. Another 20,000 were wounded. The financial toll reached a staggering $2 trillion, more than the entire Marshall Plan that rebuilt Europe after World War II. Yet amid the sacrifice, a different Afghanistan was building. Girls returned to school. Women joined the government. A new generation grew up with dreams of democracy and freedom under American protection. The Afghan Special Forces, trained by American Green Berets and Navy SEALs, became elite warriors. They fought alongside U.S. troops, sharing intelligence, conducting joint operations, and building bonds that transcended nationality. In February 2020, President Trump's administration signed a deal with the Taliban in Doha, Qatar. The agreement seemed straightforward. America would withdraw all troops by May 2021, and the Taliban would ensure Afghanistan wouldn't become a terrorist sanctuary. The deal was controversial from the start. Critics argued it gave too much to the Taliban while abandoning Afghan allies. When Joe Biden took office in January 2021, he inherited this agreement and a decision that would define his presidency. Despite warnings from military leaders and intelligence officials, Biden was determined to end America's involvement in Afghanistan. He extended the withdrawal deadline to August 31st, 2021, declaring, I will not pass this responsibility to a fifth president. But the execution of this withdrawal would prove catastrophic. The Biden administration, according to later investigations, prioritized speed over security. They ignored intelligence warnings about the Taliban's growing strength. They failed to plan for worst-case scenarios. Most critically, they had no comprehensive plan to evacuate the thousands of Afghan allies who had served alongside American forces. In early August 2021, things went downhill fast. The Taliban launched an offensive that stunned everyone with how quick and effective it was. Cities were falling one after another, and provincial capitals gave up without a fight. The Afghan military, trained and supported by the US for 20 years, was falling apart. The Biden administration's response was a study in contradictions. On July 8th, the president had assured Americans that a Taliban takeover was highly unlikely. He compared the situation to Vietnam, declaring there would be no images of helicopters evacuating the US embassy. Yet by August 15th, that's exactly what was happening. Kabul fell in a single day. President Ashraf Ghani fled the country. The Taliban entered the presidential palace, posing for photos in the same rooms where American diplomats had once planned Afghanistan's democratic future. 2 decades of American presence began unraveling in hours. The scene at Kabul's Hamid Karzai International Airport was pure chaos, and the world watched in shock. Thousands of desperate Afghans flooded the runways, some even clinging to departing US planes, ending in tragedy. The Biden administration took heat from all sides. People were asking, how did it come to this? How could 2 decades of effort fall apart so quickly? And it got worse. As the Taliban advanced, they inherited an arsenal of American military equipment. More than $7 billion worth of weapons, vehicles, and technology abandoned in the rushed withdrawal. The same weapons America had provided to fight the Taliban were now in their hands. But in the darkness of Kabul's chaos, an extraordinary mission was taking shape. As official evacuation efforts faltered, a group of retired US Special Forces veterans watched from home with growing fury. They were receiving desperate messages from Afghan allies, men they had fought alongside, trained, and promised never to abandon. Scott Mann, a retired Green Beret, was one of them. Sitting in his home in Tampa, Florida, he received a message that would change everything. A former Afghan commando who had served with SEAL Team 6 for 12 years was being hunted by the Taliban. This commando had conducted countless missions against Taliban leadership. His service to America had marked him for death. Man couldn't stand by and watch. Neither could other veterans across America. They began coordinating through encrypted chat rooms, reaching out to contacts still in Afghanistan. What started as an effort to save one man became something much larger, Task Force Pineapple. Using encrypted messaging apps and a network of veterans, they created a digital underground railroad. Afghan allies seeking escape would display a yellow pineapple on a pink background on their phones. A simple code that meant the difference between life and death. Former Green Beret Captain Zach Lois emerged as the operations engineer. He modeled their system after Harriet Tubman's Underground Railroad, moving small groups through the darkness to designated rally points. The task force members became conductors, guiding their passengers through Taliban checkpoints using a complex system of signals and code words. Working in near-total darkness, Task Force Pineapple coordinated with US troops still at the airport. Many of these active-duty soldiers defied orders restricting them to the airport perimeter, wading into sewage canals to pull allies to safety. The operation grew as veterans across America joined the effort, working around the clock to coordinate movements and verify identities. The night of August 25th marked the launch of their largest operation, the Pineapple Express. More than 50 task force members coordinated through their encrypted chat room, working with U.S. Special Forces and embassy staff to guide hundreds of Afghans to safety. They moved in small groups, navigating through Taliban checkpoints in the pitch darkness. Afghans held up their phones displaying the pineapple image, signaling to American soldiers who were wearing distinct markers like red sunglasses or modified flag patches. Every successful rescue fueled their determination to keep going and save more lives. But time was running out. The Taliban's patience was wearing thin. ISIS-K terrorists were planning an attack. The August 31st deadline loomed ever closer. Task Force Pineapple knew they were in a race against time. On August 26th, their worst fears materialized. A suicide bomber struck Abbey Gate, the very location where Task Force Pineapple had been bringing refugees to safety. 13 U.S. service members lost their lives, along with more than 170 Afghans. Among the dead were young Marines who hadn't even been born when this war began. The bombing was devastating, but Task Force Pineapple's mission continued. In the final days before America's departure, they worked tirelessly. Every successful evacuation was a promise kept, a life saved, a family preserved. By August 30th, they had helped evacuate more than 1,000 Afghan allies and their families. The story of Operation Pineapple Express stands as a testament to the warrior's code: leave no one behind. While governments and policies failed, individual veterans refused to abandon their brothers in arms. In those dark days of August 2021, Task Force Pineapple proved that promises made on the battlefield still meant something. These veterans, no longer in uniform, but still guided by their code of honor, showed the world what it truly means to keep faith with your allies. I have been involved in some of the most incredible missions and operations that a Special Forces guy could be a part of, said retired Army Major Jim Gant. And I have never been a part of anything more incredible than this. The bravery and courage and commitment of my brothers and sisters in the Pineapple community was greater than the U.S. commitment on the battlefield. The fall of Afghanistan marked the end of an era in American military history. But for the veterans who served there, for the allies who helped them, for the families who lost loved ones, the echoes of those final days continue to resonate. They remind us that the cost of war and the price of withdrawal can never be measured solely in dollars or equipment, but in the promises kept and broken, and in the lives forever changed by the decisions made far from the battlefield. Remember the fallen. This was Rogue Invest. Stay informed. Unplug from the Matrix. See you next time.